Welcome to another episode of A10X brought to you by 10 Leaves.
It's good to be back, diving into the stack.
Usually we spend our time obsessing over the architecture. We talk about context windows, parameter counts, all the latest the benchmarks. It's all very engineering heavy. But today, I want to pivot. I think we need to put the technical specs aside for a minute and look at the machinery that actually moves the world.
The economy.
The economy.
Which is, frankly, where the conversation has to go. Well, we've sort of passed the wow phase of the tech demo. We're in the deployment phase now.
Right.
And deployment is, it's purely an economic story. It's about value capture, capital allocation, and productivity.
Right. And the source material we're breaking down today, it's called The Economics of Artificial Intelligence. It doesn't pull any punches. It basically argues that if you are still looking at AI as just, a software upgrade, you are missing the forest for the trees.
Oh, completely.
This is a restructuring of the global value chain.
It's a regime shift. We are looking at how productivity is even defined, where wealth actually aggregates, and that widening delta between the winners and the losers.
Yeah.
This isn't just about who has the best chatbot. It's about who controls the new means of production.
So let's get right into it. The first pillar of this report, productivity. And I want to push past the buzzwords here because productivity is probably the most abused word in the corporate dictionary.
It really is.
The source makes a distinction that I think is critical. It says AI specifically automates knowledge work.
And that is the fundamental differentiator. If you look at the last 200 years of economic history, the Industrial Revolution, we solved the problem of physical limitations.
Where's muscle?
Exactly. We built steam engines, hydraulics to overcome the limits of human muscle. We automated the hand.
But the brain was always the bottleneck.
Precisely. No matter how fast the assembly line moved, you still needed a human to process the order, to write the contract, to design the marketing, or debug the code. Those cognitive tasks were stubbornly manual. They were tied, linearly to human hours.
And that's what this report suggests is finally breaking. We are decoupling cognitive output from biological time.
That's the economic unlock. It's all about the marginal cost of intelligence. When you deploy a model to analyze data or generate code, the cost of producing that next unit of intelligence,
it just drops.
It drops to effectively zero.
Which changes the magnitude of what's possible. The report uses this phrase, scales never seen before. That feels weighty. We aren't just talking about doing the same job, say, 10% faster.
No. Think about it in terms of supply constraints.
Yeah.
In a traditional services economy, if you want to review, 10,000 legal contracts, you need a specific number of lawyers working a specific number of hours. There is a hard cap on supply.
Because human attention is scarce.
It's scarce, and humans need to sleep and eat and...
Speaking from experience, we get bored.
Right. But in this new economic logic, you can spin up instances to review those 10,000 contracts in the time it takes you to brew your morning coffee. The supply curve for analysis or creation just shifts dramatically outward.
So you aren't just making the lawyer faster.
You're changing the fundamental unit economics of the service itself.
That brings up a massive deflationary implication, though, doesn't it? If the cost of producing high-quality text or code or analysis just crashes, the market price for those things presumably crashes too.
For the raw output, yes. But the value shifts. It shifts to the direction of that output. And that leads to what they call the J-curve effect in productivity.
Okay, what's that?
Well, companies often see a dip in efficiency at first as they try to figure out how to integrate this stuff. But once they restructure around this infinite supply of cognitive labor, the productivity gains are exponential, not linear.
So we have this engine of, infinite leverage. That sounds great on paper. But markets are rarely egalitarian. This report is pretty stark about the fact that this productivity boom doesn't land on everyone equally. It paints a picture of a race.
It's absolutely a race. And the winners, according to the analysis, are the countries and companies that invest early.
Invest early is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Because we aren't talking about buying a subscription to a tool, are we?
Not at all.
The report breaks this investment down into two massive categories, infrastructure and talent.
Okay, so let's tackle infrastructure first, because I think people really underestimate the physicality of this digital revolution. We tend to think of AI as existing in the cloud, which, it sounds fluffy and ethereal.
But the cloud is just someone else's computer, and in this case, it's acres and acres of GPUs.
It's concrete and steel and silicon and copper. The infrastructure the report refers to is the new industrial base. We are talking about data centers that consume as much power as small cities.
So the moat for the winners here is capital expenditure. It's CapEx.
It's pure CapEx. This is what we are seeing with the hyperscalers. They are spending tens of billions of dollars just to pour the concrete and rack the servers.
Exactly. And the report highlights that if you don't have this infrastructure, you are effectively renting your economic future from someone who does.
It's the 21st century equivalent of railways or electrification. I mean, if a country doesn't have the compute capacity and, crucially, the energy capacity to run these models.
That's a key point, energy. You can have all the chips in the world, but if you can't power them, they're just expensive sand.
Pretty much. So the winners investing early are essentially building sovereign capabilities in compute and in energy generation.
That is the table stakes for participating in the AI economy. Without the infrastructure, you have no engine.
You have no engine.
Okay, then there's the second pillar, talent. This one always trips people up. We just spent 10 minutes explaining how AI automates knowledge work. So if the machine is doing the thinking, why is human capital the other main investment vector?
Because the machine is a force multiplier, not a magic wand.
Yeah.
It needs a pilot. The report is very specific here. You need the talent to build, to maintain, and to wield the infrastructure.
Okay, so the value shifts from doing the thing to directing the machine to do the thing.
Think of it as the rise of the centaur, the human-AI hybrid. The most valuable employees aren't necessarily the ones who can code the fastest from scratch anymore.
Right.
It's the ones who have the domain expertise to know what needs to be coded and the system architecture skills to manage the AI that's doing the work.
It creates a paradox, though. You need fewer people to do the rote work, but the people who can manage the AI become exponentially more expensive.
Yeah.
And scarce.
Correct. It's a talent war for the top 1%. The engineers who can train these massive models, the data scientists who can curate the data sets, the strategists who can integrate it all into a business model, that is a finite resource.
And the companies that hoard that talent early.
They lock in a compounding advantage.
That concept, compounding advantage, is terrifying if you're on the wrong side of it. Because data begets better models, which attracts better talent, which then generates more capital to buy more GPUs. It's a flywheel.
That is the winner-take-most dynamic. It's inherent in digital economies, and AI just pours gasoline on it. Which brings us to the most friction-heavy part of the report.
The global wealth shift.
Yeah.
The inequalities section. The report asks the question we're all thinking, does this widen the gap? And honestly, looking at the infrastructure costs and the talent scarcity, it's hard to see how it doesn't.
Well, the report says it can widen inequality. That's the default setting of the technology if it's left to pure market forces. If capital, the robots, the software becomes more productive than labor, the humans, then a greater share of the economic pie goes to the owners of the capital.
That's Thomas Piketty 101 RG. The return on capital outpaces growth.
Exactly. But the source material argues this isn't inevitable, it's conditional. It depends entirely on how we react. It proposes two big mitigations, inclusive access and reskilling.
Let's poke holes in these a bit, or at least examine them critically. Inclusive access. That sounds nice, but what does that mean in practice?
It means the democratization of the capability.
Yeah.
So if the most powerful models are locked inside, say, 3 or 4 mega corporations and only used for their internal benefit, the gap widens. For sure.
Of course.
Inclusive access means ensuring that small businesses, researchers, developing nations, that they can access these intelligence engines through an API or open source.
So it's about treating intelligence like a utility, like electricity. You don't need to build a power plant to turn on the lights in your shop.
You just pay for what you use. That's the ideal outcome. If a small startup in a rural area has access to the same GPT-level reasoning as a Fortune 500 company, the playing field levels out somewhat.
Okay.
They can compete on creativity and execution, not raw R&D spend.
Then we have reskilling. This is the one that politicians love to talk about. We'll just retrain the workforce. But the report frames this as a necessity, not just a slogan.
It's a necessity, but it's also incredibly difficult. We aren't talking about a 2-week seminar on how to use a spreadsheet here.
Yeah.
We are talking about fundamentally shifting the cognitive skill set of the workforce, moving people from procedural tasks to complex problem solving.
And the timeline is the problem, right? Technology moves exponentially, but education, it moves linearly. By the time you design a curriculum for the current tools, the tools have already changed 3 times.
That's the friction point. That J-curve applies to people too. There is going to be a messy transition period where the old jobs are automating away faster than the workforce can adapt to the new ones.
So the report says this requires
Active policy intervention. You can't just hope the market sorts it out in time.
So this is where the economics part of the title really lands. We are talking about fiscal policy, education reform, maybe even new social safety nets to bridge that transition gap.
We have to, because if the gains from this productivity explosion concentrate solely at the top with the owners of the infrastructure, you destroy the consumer base that drives the entire economy.
So it's in everyone's interest, even the winners, to ensure the wealth circulates.
It is. It's a delicate balance. You want to incentivize the investment in that massive infrastructure, but you also need to distribute the fruits of that productivity.
And that is the central tension of the next decade.
I think so.
So, zooming back out, we've covered the engine, this move to zero marginal cost intelligence. We've covered the players, the infrastructure giants, and the talent hoarders. And we've covered the stakes, the potential for a massive inequality gap if we don't actively manage the transition.
It validates the premise we started with. AI isn't just a tech shift.
It's an economic restructuring.
Completely.
It reminds me of the shift from agriculture to industry. It wasn't just that we got tractors, it's that the entire structure of society changed. Where people lived, how they earned money, what skills were valued, everything just flipped.
And we are likely in the early innings of a similar flip. The difference this time is speed. The agricultural shift took generations. The industrial shift took decades. This is happening in years.
Which brings me to the so what for you, for our listener. We've got people listening who are running businesses, managing portfolios, or just trying to plan their careers. The report harps on this idea of investing early.
It does. And I'd interpret investment broadly here. It's not just financial capital. It's cognitive capital.
Right. So if you're sitting on the sidelines waiting to see how this whole AI thing shakes out, you are effectively depreciating your own value.
The cost of inaction is asymmetric. Look, if you invest time in learning these tools and re-architecting your workflows, and it turns out to be hype, you lost some time. But if you ignore it, and it turns out to be the new electricity,
you're obsolete.
You're obsolete.
That's the scary word.
And the divide isn't just between countries, it's between companies that integrate this intelligence layer and those that don't. The efficiency gap will eventually become insurmountable. You simply won't be able to compete on margin or speed against an AI-native competitor.
So the moat we talked about earlier isn't just for the Googles and Microsofts of the world. Every individual professional has to build their own moat of adaptability.
Adaptability is the new job security.
Absolutely. I want to leave the listeners with a final thought to chew on, something that stems from that early mover advantage. We know the infrastructure build-out is happening right now. The concrete is being poured today.
The race is already on.
So here is the question. If the compound interest of intelligence is real, if the benefits accrue exponentially to those who start first, where does that leave everyone who is currently hitting the snooze button? Are we looking at a future where catching up isn't just hard, but mathematically impossible?
That is the risk. In a network effect economy, being late is often the same as being wrong.
A cheerful thought to end on, but a necessary one. We need to understand the stakes to play the game.
Absolutely. The economy is changing and we have to change with it.
Thank you for diving into the numbers with us. It's a dense topic, but I think we found the signal in the noise.
Always a pleasure.
This was AI 10X, brought to you by 10 Leaves.